I'm MLB broadcaster and host of Foul Territory Live, Scotty Braun, and the time has arrived again. Welcome to the Out of the Park Baseball 24 Reveal Show. OOTP releases March 24th, 2023, and you can pre-order today right now for 10% off. Plus, you get a 3-day early access pass to OOTP 24. So that would be March 21st, all yours. Hit OOTPdevelopments.com to order. And now you're going to get all of the juicy details. I am so happy to chat with my friend on an annual basis for all of you. Markus Heinsohn, the creator of the OOTP franchise, is joining us right now, as always, for the Reveal Show with all of the insights that you fans need. Markus, great to connect again. Congratulations on Out of the Park Baseball 24. It's all happening again. How excited are you to share this version of OOTP with the world? And as we've talked about over the years, give fans some of the insights to how this was put together.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Scott. It's good to talk with you again. And I can't believe it has been a year. So time flies by, really. And it's version number 24. So next year, essentially, we have a quarter century, which is crazy, I think. And and every single season, the game gets better and better. And I'm happy to share some insights about this today, definitely.
This is just like you planned, right? When you started this up about a quarter century ago, saying, I can't wait to have the reveal show for OOTP 24 years later. Is it nuts to think that there have been so many editions of this game already, and it just continues to impress everyone and be evolving, I would say, within the gaming ecosystem?
Yeah, it's crazy. When I started this, the first money that I earned from the game was basically paying for my grocery. I was a student at the University of Hamburg back then, and it was an amazing feeling, just turning a hobby into something that actually pays a few of the bills. And yeah, we had a long way, but here we are sitting and talking about the new game and the new baseball season with you. It's crazy. Yeah.
And very on point with scheduling too. I know, we had a little bit of an abnormal schedule a year ago, but how nice is it to be back on track with that, the late March that everyone loves?
Yeah, last year was tough. We had a few technical issues, especially with our back end, because our back end provider unfortunately got shut down. So we had to scramble and adjust the system to a completely new provider company. And that was a lot of hard work and took longer than we wanted. And so we basically shipped, I think it was like 4 weeks late or 3 weeks. I don't even remember. I blacked this out already because it was not a good time. And but this year being right on time to release the game like a week prior to opening day is just perfect, because for us, we always work right up to the last minute, also fine tuning the player ratings and the rosters and the setups, the depth charts, all of that. And I think we are in a very, very good spot right now. I can't wait to release the game on time again, finally. So the whole company is very happy. Obviously, it's crunch time around mid-March is always like, I don't know, you barely leave the house, and because we don't have a central office, everybody's working from home in our company, and you barely leave the house. But it's also fun because you see all those loose ends come together, and every day is closer to opening day for us, and I'm very happy.
And I will say this, the OOTP community appreciates the transparency. You get that with the entire team here and with the responses from you too. Like, hey, this game, last year we had to deal with the company and their issues. Now we're good to go, back on track with the timing. And of course, the game never misses a beat. So I'm going to start big picture with you, Markus. Just overall, give me one thing about the game that you're super excited about. And then I'll ask you about some of the details, of course. But when you're looking at this year's version and saying, I want to play OOTP 24 because, what's your response?
Personally, for me, I would say the improved 3D in-game, but there are so many areas of the game that we touch. But if I had to choose one, because nowadays I'm more into managing the games one by one, pitch by pitch. In the past, I didn't do this, so the way I personally play the game has changed a little, to be honest. So back then, I was like more the general manager and simulated most of the games. But now, since our 3D engine is improving every single season, and I think this year we've made quite a few advances, especially in terms of the variety of animations and the smoothness. And we have the camera is more dynamic, I would say. So sometimes you just see the camera doing things and you're like, oh man, this is cool. This is like a real TV show kind of. And yeah, I like this. And we also added a few more bells and whistle with all those advanced metrics that have just being introduced into MLB broadcasts the past few years with the StatCast and everything. We try to, since we always track those statistics internally, we try to better present them to the user when you're actually managing a game. So you get instant replays when you hit a monster home run, and you get the launch angle and the exit velocity and all of that, and you can really see where the ball lands, and it's cool. I like this. So for me this year, it's eye candy because I play many more games than I used to, and it's a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too because I'm managing games. That's kind of my bread and butter too when I'm playing. And we even do that, of course, on shows like The Big Idea on Twitch in the past. So give me a little bit more on how the evolution of the 3D gameplay came to mind, because remember, it wasn't too long ago that the focus was on everything else. So you didn't have 3D action of players moving and swinging, fielding, and now you've got all that. You've got deeper uniforms. So take us from zero 3D to a little bit of 3D to now the full-on 3D gameplay action that we're getting.
Well, when it all started, we decided we definitely need to hire somebody who's actually doing 3D development, because we had nobody in the team who could handle it. I mean, for me, it's sorcery. I have no idea what's this, so I could never do it. And so we hired somebody. His name is Yorin, and he's created the whole 3D engine from scratch. And we started with the ballpark. So at first, we only had the 3D ballparks, and we had ball flight. It's hard to believe, really. You just saw the ball flying in 3D. There were no players, nothing, and not even sound, I think. And then the next step was we had like little chess pawns running around without legs. So you would know, okay, well, where are the fielders now? And that was kind of cute, actually, because your mind was doing all the imagination of if there is a diving play, right? You didn't really see it. You would have to imagine it, basically. And I found that really, really engaging in a certain weird way, but obviously it was not for everyone. And then we started adding proper play animations, which looked really clunky at first. And then the next step was me being locked in a motion capture studio, because I don't know if everybody in the audience knows this, but I used to play baseball myself for over a decade in the German league system, and I was a shortstop and a pitcher. So yeah, I grabbed my ball and my glove and got into some comfortable clothes, and then it was 3D capture time. And after that, I was sore for almost 2 weeks, because it took us like 6 hours or so, and I was doing all those animations. Basically, 90% of the animations you see in the game, that's actually me doing my things, and that was quite an experience. And yeah, so this is what we built upon, and we fine-tuned all those animations. We also purchased new animations and brought them into the game this year, and there were some rough edges that we were able to polish with a few fancy programming tricks, and now it looks good. Yeah, I'm very happy. It's, of course, it's not it's not in a league with like professional, awesome PlayStation game, because I mean, this is not what our game is intended to do, but it looks better and better each year. And I'm I'm confident that the next few years we can even improve it some more. But the way it's right now, I would say 5 years ago, I would say we wouldn't accomplish this. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, it wasn't the original focus, but why not add the bonus to the game of the 3D gameplay? Because some of what's been the bread and butter for the game is, for example, franchise mode lately, which has just
Mhm.
really taken off in popularity more and more every single year. So we know as it is, it's the most in depth, it's the most authentic. I mean, there's almost nothing that can sneak past franchise mode in terms of real life details in the game. So, how important has it been to you and the team to be able to evolve that every year with the newest release of the game? Because if you think about it, Marcus, the fact that there is no stone unturned detail wise actually challenges you quite a bit to be able to add to it every year.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big challenge, and it grows bigger every single season. That's for sure. But the good thing is we have our community, and I mean, no matter what, no game will ever be perfect. And as long as you communicate all the time with your customers and your fans, they come up with all sorts of ideas all the time, and it's just a matter of executing. But it's more about the details nowadays. It's really hard to invent a really revolutionary new back of the box feature. I mean, like I said, we've been working on the game for like almost 26 years now, and there is only it's a baseball game after all, right? I mean, wouldn't make sense to put car chases into it or something like this. So it's yeah, you're kind of limited in the scope, and yeah, but we have our community, and they have lots of feedback every year, and everybody has his own pet peeve, and yeah, we try to make as many people happy as possible every single season. And yeah, and frankly, there are always areas where you can improve the game, especially in terms of AI. For example, trading AI, something which we work very hard on this year, is probably one of the most difficult things to get right in a game. Period. Because there are so many factors, and it's so easy to spot shortcomings. And yeah, so this is something where this year a lot of work went into, and I'm very very happy about this.
And I'll ask you a little more about trades coming up in a few minutes. I want to ask you about the deadline, but one specific detail that stood out to me, because I've always been a big prospect person. I've hosted a good chunk of the MLB draft for many years, called the Futures Game. A lot of what the young, shining stars of the game of tomorrow will look like involves, of course, what you see in the United States with college baseball players, but then there's international amateur free agency, which is just a whole world of its own. And I'm imagining not easy to incorporate into the game. And your team has done a ton of work on that front. So I know that's not easy. How did that go? And how excited are you about that feature being enhanced?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of, next to the draft, obviously, it's like the biggest source for players entering the MLB system, and eventually some of them become absolute superstars, right? And this is kind of hard to get right in a way, because those players are very young. They are younger than your typical draft class, so they are still very underdeveloped, and there are lots of uh, wild cards and lots of room for error for the scouting. Obviously, sometimes you see somebody who you think is the next Ken Griffey, and he flames out like a year later, and vice versa. So we wanted to try to emulate this, yeah, this experience in terms of, okay, how much money do you invest in this, how much scouting do you invest in this, which players do you focus on, which players do you invite to a training camp. We have this feature right now, so you can invite players to a training camp, which gives you a better look. And the more often those players come to your training camp, the better relationships they form with your organization. So it's kind of a pretty complex thing as it is in real life, I imagine. And it adds, it adds a new dimension. And I think now it's on par to the whole draft system as well. So you can really spend a whole lot of time just evaluating the potential future of your franchise this way. And I really like this.
Let me ask you about what out of the park baseball is also synonymous with in terms of authenticity, and that's getting your picks right, which is very much not easy to do. The simulation of the sport, we do that a lot now on our show. I mean, it is like the go-to predictive formula for us. If we're looking, say, at futures, what a team is expected to win for the season, games wise, we will look at thousands of simulations put together and what the results were from out of the park baseball. So we appreciate that on the shows, especially on FT Live for me now, with a lot of former players looking over what out of the park has to say about it, because it's not just staying super, super conservative like some of the other number simulations out there. It takes those risks that I think we need and doesn't try to just be safe about it. And that's why I think it's more successful. So out of the park's done an amazing job predicting season and playoff and championship results. It's well documented. You can look it up. So of course you took that component to the next level too, Marcus. I see OOTP 24 has an all new pitcher BABIP model. So explain for those that don't know a lot about BABIP or just why that was incorporated in terms of a predictive formula, what that's all about, and not just for perfect team mode, but also for historic seasons too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we always had a simulation model where BABIP basically what happens after the hitter made contact with the ball, and that most pitches don't really have that much influence on what happens afterwards. And we always had this incorporated in our system. But what we wanted to do now as a next step is just really find out where those little nuances are, not only for present day players, but also for historical players. And that we always had like certain pitchers who kind of underperformed in the model or overperformed. And it was really tough to get this right, because we typically calculated those little details using the pitch repertoire, for example, or velocity, or the pitcher height, or the pitcher handedness, and all those little factors, and the release point and everything. But that proved to be not 100% accurate. So we dug deeper into our statistical database and tried to find a little bit of fairy magic, basically, and see if we can come up with some model that actually improves the output and takes care of those outliers that we had in the past, and it actually does. So it's a good way, especially for historical fans, for the historical mode of our game, to get even more realistic results from replay seasons of the past. And obviously it's also better for present day simulations too. Yeah.
So on present day, we have new rules this year in Major League Baseball, significant changes, right? We have shift restrictions, reduction in pickoff throw attempts. The pitch clock is huge and making a massive impact in spring training. Quicker games in terms of time, much quicker pace in terms of how much action you're getting within that time period. So, and we've been ahead of it, or you've been ahead of it, you and the team at OOTP anyway. You've had the option, for example, to have shifts or not have shifts. That's been around for years. But were there any direct implications to OOTP 24 based on any of these other rule changes that went on? Did anything different go on in terms of preparation and how the game was put together?
Yeah, the pitch clock is one thing where we debated internally what to do about this, because obviously the game is not a real-time simulation in terms that you have it's step by step, right? So it wouldn't really make sense to add a pitch clock and tell the user, come on now, you need to click the button, and when the doorbell rings, you get a call with a balk or ball or whatever. So this is I don't know. We figured, okay, this is not fun. Instead of this, what we did is sometimes you get like random freak events that have to do with the pitch clock, but those are like a little bit more like those Easter eggs and the pitch clock itself, because the pace in the game is, yeah, I mean, it's controlled by the user, and we didn't want to change this in terms of managing out your game. We did add a real-time element, and I guess we get to this when it comes to the trading, but all the other rule changes we already had implemented, and all we had to do was just change the default settings, run a few more tests, because obviously we saw the shifts, what kind of effect it had down in the minor leagues, the banning the shift, how that changed the betting average on balls in play and everything, and we tried to incorporate that so that it's as realistic as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. Imagine if, your food delivery comes through and then you just struck out, or you just issued a walk because the pitch clock went up. So that makes a lot of sense. But I do like that, right? It'll mix in just like anything else would, where there could suddenly be a pitch clock violation on your pitcher, which won't necessarily happen very frequently. These guys are catching up pretty quickly, but cool to have that involved. Love that. And also, yes, it's time. Let's talk trades. So trade deadline day is one of my favorite days of the year. And something else that's part of the game now and more immersive than ever is that OOTP has gotten really involved on that front. It's one of the biggest days in the baseball world in terms of news. So how did you do it? What did you do to construct the trade deadline within the game to make it really stand out?
Yeah, we did something that we never really did before. We added a real-time element, which is still optional. So if you're like an old-time user and you don't want this, you just want a normal pace at your selected speed, then you can set it up that way. But if you want a real challenge and want to sweat some tears, you can set on and enable the clock, and then you only have a certain amount of time, like I don't know, a couple of minutes to negotiate trades with the AI, and that's fun. It's really fun. It kind of like transports the feeling that I imagine that real life general managers have on trade deadline day, or for example in the famous movie Moneyball, we all remember Brad Pitt working the phone, things like this. So it's cool. It's something new, and maybe if people like this, it's not the last time that we add something which is real time based to the game. And yeah, but that's not the only thing. I mean, we improved the AI obviously, and we also added a trading reputation system. So this is brand new, basically. So when you are as the GM, when you frequently cancel trades or bail out of trades, the AI will not forget this. And so you will have a hard time if you are not somebody who they can, or who the opponents can basically trust. And if they think like, oh man, this GM is not taking us seriously, then yeah, you will probably not be able to negotiate proper trades with those teams again. So this is something that we worked on, and it adds a new layer to the whole system, because prior to that it was mainly based, or entirely based on team strengths and weaknesses and how the AI evaluates everything. But the AI would never get mad about you, right? So, but this has changed. So if you don't treat it nice, then who knows what happens? Maybe it won't talk to you anymore.
That's real, though. That's what this is about. That is real. I mean,
Yeah.
so many examples come to mind when you're bringing that up. Like Jock Peterson was supposed to be on the Angels years back, and the Angels got impatient with the deal because I think they were checking medicals for a few days, and so they ended up saying, "Nah, forget it." I also think about it. I did an interview recently talking about the Cleveland Guardians, and they have a reputation where they hold their prospects to such a high regard. It's hard sometimes to make trades with them. So again, the reputation factor coming into play, that if you pick up the phone, it might be hard to pull off a deal. I love that. And then I'm also thinking about the clock. And I know last year, I won't give the team away, but a front office told me that they were trying to acquire a big name player who didn't end up getting traded. And the team that wanted to trade that player said, we haven't had enough time to do homework on your prospects. So the trade never happened. It wasn't because they couldn't necessarily come to agreement. They hadn't even been able to put the scouting together to feel comfortable making a trade of a major player. So I know there's a lot of teasing to that, but that's really cool. I love all of that being added. And then I'm going to give you one more, kind of maybe to some tiny detail, but to others, it stands out because it's more aesthetically pleasing. So the customization of the player experience, always a hallmark of Out of the Park as well. So at first glance, you might not notice it, might not be a big deal. I know there are others within the community that will probably see it right away, even if they don't see this conversation. Names and numbers on the back of jerseys in this year's game for the first time ever. And from what I understand, from what I've been told, you're the expert, you let me know, there's new customization options with those. So there's fonts on the jerseys, all the attention to detail that I'm sure the biggest, most intricate fans in terms of the art and the aesthetics would appreciate. So am I on the money there?
Yeah, definitely. And this is because those are those little details that may not matter to everybody, but we have a very, very active modding community, and they will have plenty to play around with here. And just being able to with the fonts on all the names and the numbers on the backs of the jerseys, or we have now different pants styles, I think, and high socks and things like that. So it's really, it doesn't really make a difference in terms of the simulation results, obviously, but it's fun, and I'm pretty sure that the modding community will come up with absolute amazing looking things that you could easily load up into your game, and maybe even like completely new fictional sets or league ideas that they can realize with those new options. And it's fun. I mean, our graphics designer hated it a little bit because it was a lot of work for him, but it's cool, and it was worth it. And it just looks, you when you see it, you realize, oh, that wasn't there before, and it actually makes a difference. So it's kind of weird, but totally love it.
Yeah, you're never going to want to look back, right, Marcus? I mean,
Yeah.
if you had gone back, people are going to be like, wait, this does not look right. It's one of those aesthetic changes that really makes a difference. And you're right, the mod community is probably pumped, especially to hear you shout them out and say, "Bring it on! I love it."
Yeah.
Okay, so I know that there'll be a separate reveal for Perfect Team 23 later on in March, so I won't really step on that too much, but just one teaser for me, because there's such a rabid fan base on that front too. Can you give me one new feature item, something from Perfect Team reveal that we have to look forward to when that gets released, when we do that show?
We have added a few more tournament types, which is really cool. One of them is what we call an entry fee tournament, which should be fun. So it's a little bit, you put a little bit of perfect points in a certain pot, and then the winner gets a pot plus a pack or something like this. And that's really fun. It's just like a competitive new way to play in tournaments. And I at first thought like, okay, yeah, I don't know if this adds anything, but it does. It's fun. It's like it spices up the battle in tournaments a little bit, and I like this. So yeah, and obviously what we already talked about, the new game engine changes, which will also apply to Perfect Team, and so you will have to do a little bit more research, and those strategies that may have worked last year in terms of evaluating players may need to dig into this again. And that adds to the challenge. And I really like this.
I like the competition part. Anytime we can amp that up within the community, it creates a lot more incentivization, a lot more interaction between community members. So great. We'll have the full deal with Perfect Team coming up soon later this month. So Markus, we know the job's not easy. Like you said, you're locked in the room for most of the month towards the deadline to make sure that everything is as perfect as it can be for the release. So there are many people, I'll speak for them within the community, that always want to say thank you. They always comment on this video too, being like, the legend, Markus, he's on. Let's go. 30 minutes of insight from the Godfather. So we appreciate the hard work that you do, innovating, adding every single year when you're going, this is about as real as it gets. And then the next year you come up with more. So you're a legend, always a pleasure to catch up with you too, my friend. And thanks and cheers to OOTP 24's release.
Thank you so much. It's always great to talk to you and talk some baseball. And it's just amazing to be part of the whole baseball universe. And that's what it is. It's the best sports on this planet. And yeah, being part of this is incredible. And I couldn't be thankful enough. So thanks for this opportunity as well, Scott.
Thank you. And I'll give it one more plug, Out of the Park Baseball 24. And if you've stuck with us for the full reveal show, you probably know, you probably already ordered, but tell your friends. It releases March 24th, 2023. Pre-order, 10% off, 3-day early access on March 21st. It will be all yours. OOTPdevelopments.com. You know all of that. And thanks again, and enjoy the game.